Hello and welcome to Tuneful Tuesdays. Now, before we dive into the goodness, the Black Forest Gatto of music, let's dwell just a few moments, but let's dwell nevertheless on a trivia question. Now, in the last music magazine, well, the trivia question surrounded Pink Floyd and a distinctly English sporting theme. This one surrounds cricket and Mr. Roy Harper. And the question is this: in Roy Harper's 1975 recording, When an Old Cricketer Leaves the Crease, that song is widely regarded as one of the most moving musical celebrations of sport. The question is this: to which two England cricketers was that song originally dedicated? So, as ever, please don't hit Google on this. It's a little bit of fun. Have a little think as you watch the video. I'll come back at the end and let you know. Let's get to the main course. And welcome to Tuneful Tuesdays, and we're looking at a music magazine, and we're looking at a couple of book reviews, and we have a couple of vinyl reviews, but we are starting with vinyl news. So let's get to that. First up, we're looking at Germany's Speaker's Corner, one of the best audiophile labels in the world. Methinks this particular release is devoted to jazz and one Billy Cobham, and the album is Total Eclipse from the ex-Miles Davis and Mahavishnu Orchestra member. Now, Billy Cobham was a fusion drummer, and fusion is what we have here, that both inspires and also wows. Next up, we have a duo from Germany's Bear family and a couple of 10-inch vinyl releases. First up is Left Behind, a 13-tracker. That also includes a 34-track CD and a 16-page booklet from Felsted, a subsidiary of the London label. So what you find on all of this format goodness is an excellent range of rockers from the late 50s and early 60s. Next from Bear Family is Johnny Burnett's and the Rock and Roll Trio, and that can only be ordered from the company's own website. This is a 500 copy limited edition, comes out on blue vinyl, and the 10-inch release arrives with a postcard and a reproduction of a very rare South African pressing from 1956. Next, then we have Trentemoller. I think it's Trentemoller. You can tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Trentemoller actually releases a new album called Memoria, brackets in my room. A dark wave, shoegazy, atmospheric outing from this Danish artist with Lise Fritz on vocals. The vocal outings are pretty good indeed. The instrumental versions of the same are even better. Now, I mentioned the Mahavishnu Orchestra. Again, is that how you pronounce it? Mahavishnu? I think it is. Anyway, Billy Cobham, I talked about earlier. Another member of the same, John McLaughlin, on the Montreux years from BMG. The legendary guitarist showcases his Montreux performances on this double album, ranging from 1978 to 2016. And features different lineups, such as the Mahavishnu Orchestra's The Heart of Things Band, the Free Spirits, and also the Fourth Dimension. The whole thing is rather beautifully presented. And next we have Jerry and the Pelican System, which is a rather nifty name for this Polish jazz group. This is a 6-tracker called Sariani, and it's on the Yay Yay Holland label. Mixing ambience and electronica with jazz, this fusion outing offers a fascinating blend of the avant-garde with the melodic. And next, from the Happy Robots UK label, we have Rodney Cromwell. Cromwell's memory box offers electro-primitivism combined with a low-key, restrained vocal delivery and some delicious melodies that are both simple yet direct. Anyone out there interested in Sun Ra, some out there jazz? Well, he originally released Languidity. I think it's Languidity. I'm being challenged in this particular video. It's definitely on the Strut label, at any rate. It was originally released in 1978 on the Philly Jazz label and was recorded at Bob Banks' Blank Tapes after the orchestra, which was Sun Ra's backing band, had appeared on Saturday Night Live, of all places. This jam-based fusion outing offers slow-paced funk and low-key psychedelia. It's an interesting departure from the man from Saturn. That's your lot in terms of vinyl news. Next up, book reviews. First book review is by the prolific and super nerdy, and I say that in the best possible sense, Vernon Joynson. Now, Vernon, well, he is in the habit of producing incredible books, and this one is no different. It's called the Britpop Bible. The Britpop Bible is released by Borderline. It costs £55. It's a paperback, and it spans 700, that's right, 724 pages. Now, when you hear that there's a book on the way from Mr. Joynson, you tend to hide behind the sofa because you know it'll be a tome about the size of a house. That's just about right for this new work of immensity that focuses on that particular British take on rock. This one features 16 pages of colour, including a host of record sleeves that will, well, it will trigger a swathe of nostalgic reminiscence. The book itself is packed with information on bands, albums, singles, and a ton of information related to all of that and a lot more. Let's take a random example, shall we? And let's look at who? Hefner. Let's look at Hefner, and we'll see how they're treated. Well, we're told who was in the group and what role they took. There's an album discography, a catalogue number for each of those, dates of release, notes relating to those are also listed below. There's plenty of hardcore fan information here, such as promo releases, session information, and a lot more. Then you get an EP listing, lots of notes on those, singles information, and a whole long essay on the band's in-depth career. Joynson tells us that they appeared as a guest on this album, and there's unreleased tracks that can be found on that disc. That kind of thing, all within closely spaced type. This book is exhaustive and also quite brilliant, as I say. Joynson has done it again. This is an essential book if you're into the genre. Any Britpop band fan or fan of music in general should really buy this one. Next up, we're looking at Kathy Valentine. Now, you might know Kathy Valentine as the bassist in the all-girl band The Go-Go's. This is an autobiography. It's called All I Ever Wanted, a rock and roll memoir, published by Jawbone. It is priced at £14.95 and spans 272 pages. Now, as Valentine herself says, there were not that many ladies in bands during the late 70s and 80s. Valentine's childhood exposure to one Susie Quattro, though, provided enough inspiration to get her on the tracks. Thing is, though, her childhood lacked stability as her parents divorced. Valentine quickly became a latchkey kid. She started drinking. She started smoking cigarettes, then pot, and then came the drugs. She then stumbled into sex, and that gave her a rather doubtful reputation amongst her peers. That created self-image problems. Then she had an abortion, and she was still a child, and we're not even past page 35 yet. As you can see, this is a rather intense book. Well, as for the lady herself, the music provided her own salvation. The Sex Pistols, the Ramones, the Runaways, and then the Go-Go's themselves. This is a story of how it was being a woman in rock back then. Tough, I think, is the word. There's also a smattering of celeb culture in this book. So there are times with John Belushi, there are times with the Police, Rod Stewart, and many, many more. This is a fast-paced and action-packed account. Exhausting? Well, yes, but in a good way. And next, we'll finish with a couple of vinyl reviews. First up, we're looking at a release from Kscope. This is Cult Leader Tactics from Paul Draper. Now, yes, this is a vinyl review, but to be fair to Draper, the label, and the fans, I must also make mention of the rather lovely 10-inch sized CD book edition that features that album, live performances from 2019, demos, outtakes, and more over 3 discs, plus a DVD including surround sound files and 24-bit 48 kilohertz high-res files. So that's done. Let's get back to the vinyl. And let's get back to Draper. So, Draper. Who is Paul Draper? Well, many of you will better know the man as the lead singer of the band Manson, who were responsible for, well, one of my favourite 90s album releases, Attack of the Grey Lantern, which came out 1996, I think. Some people have labelled that particular release as Britpop, but I don't think it was. I wouldn't really call it Britpop. It might have appeared at the same time, but I don't really think it is. Actually, I think the album transcended the genre. Now, Manson broke up after Draper himself was diagnosed with cancer, which is a terrible thing. I didn't know he had cancer. This was the first time I'd heard that, and it was a bit of a shock to me, just as a fan. Now, by the time Draper was ready to work again, the band in 2003 had basically drifted apart. Draper buckled down to work as a songwriter and producer for other artists, and then let slip to his fan base that he was building a body of solo work on the side. And a sort of dialogue arose, you might say, between himself and his fan base. Now, Kscope has provided Draper with a platform, and well, here we are. This is an album that looks without the world's political situation, for example, and also it looks within his own issues. There's plenty of solid work here, tightly woven, efficiently produced. It doesn't grab me in the same way that Grey Lantern grabbed me, but I do like what Draper is doing here, and it's certainly great to see Draper back in the saddle. Mastering is pretty good indeed. The vocals are pushed way back into 3D space, adding structure to the soundstage. Presentation is pretty neutral and balanced. This is a fine collection, and I look forward to bigger and better things from the man next time round. and I hope he keeps well. Our final review and our final little outing for this video is the self-titled album by Cooder from Warner Brothers. This is the great man's debut, as many self-titled albums tend to be. It was unleashed upon the world in 1970 and spans a restrained 29 minutes, plus change. Cooder knew when to stop, of course. Many musicians could use a similar lesson in self-editing. At this point, Cooder was around 22 years of age, but he'd already hung around with the Rolling Stones, Taj Mahal, Captain Beefheart and other luminaries. When you pick up that sort of experience, then your confidence as a musician, well, it can only increase, especially if you also have your own creative ideas. Now, Cooder had lots of those, as this album amply illustrates. So you've got blues here, you've got some rock, you've got some folk, and you've even got a little bit of pop. Then you add arrangements and musicianship from the likes of Van Dyke Parks, backing by the likes of Roy Estrada, and further backing by Gloria Jones and more, and you have a fine pot of stew to draw upon. And let's not forget the songs, covers from John Estes. Is it John Estes? Again, not too sure on the pronunciation. John Estes, I think. That particular song is Going to Brownsville. We have Blind Willie Johnson's Dark is the Night, and we also have Woody Guthrie's Do Re Mi mix, with more contemporary fare such as Randy Newman's Old Kentucky Home and Cooder's own contribution called Available Space. This is an album that's full of charm and also sophistication in terms of delivery and musical skill. The original mastering on this one is really right up against your face. The volume is relatively high, so you might find yourself backing off a little bit in gain terms. There's plenty of detail on offer here, especially from the Cooder guitar, which roams across a pretty wide soundstage. Now, yes, Cooder's vocal abilities don't do some of the blues songs true justice, but his guitar work certainly makes up for a lot of that, and he has lots of heart, so you end up cheering him on. And that's it, folks, but before I say goodbye, let's get back to that trivia question, shall we? And, well, I'll repeat the question for you. And that question revolves around Roy Harper's 1975 recording of the song When an Old Cricketer Leaves the Crease, a song that's widely regarded as one of the most moving musical celebrations of sport. To which two England cricketers was it dedicated? And the answer is Mr. Jeff Boycott and John Snow, the former a dedicated batsman and the latter a hot and heavy fast bowler. So before you go, let me thank you very much for all of your support, and if you haven't already done so, down below if you can click on the like and subscribe buttons, please. Also in the description you'll find chapter headings. You can navigate to your heart's content around this video, and it's probably one of those videos where navigation is going to be a good thing, I think. You'll also find links to my website, there's my Facebook group which you're welcome to join, and also my Patreon page. And if you can support me via Patreon, it helps to keep this channel going. I will be back next weekend-ish for Patreon supporters, Friday for general YouTube release, probably Sunday. And you can look at something hi-fi related. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. There's a little bit of there's one or two ructions occurring. I don't know. We've recently had Record Store Day, haven't we? And I don't know. It might be hi-fi related. It might actually be Record Store Day related, because a few items have come in. Maybe enough for a video. Possibly. We'll see. I don't know. If you want to check the community tab down there, I do publish little hints and tips and tweaks and stuff down there, bits of news. I'll probably confirm what's cooking in that little community area. So check that out. Anyway, I hope to see you, whatever we're doing at the time. whatever I'm ultimately going to be planning, I hope to see you there and hope to have your company. Otherwise, I get incredibly lonely. So, yeah, until that time, folks, bye-bye for now.